Hey everybody, so sorry I'm not there. We did talk about this last week, so at least this one didn't come out of nowhere. Um, if you haven't already, please be sure to sign the sign-in sheet so you can be counted as present for today. As you know, I'll be back on Wednesday. We will finish up the lecture. We'll have the discussion of our documents. And if we have time, we'll do an exam review for exam 3, which, as you guys, I'm sure, remember, is available and will be due by the end of the day Friday. All right. The preeminent world power in 1000 CE was still China, despite its recent turmoil. Once dampened, the turbulence yielded to a long era of stability and splendor that made China a regional engine of Afroeurasian prosperity. In 907 CE, the Tang dynasty splintered into regional kingdoms, mostly led by military generals. In 960 CE, one of these generals ended the fragmentation, reunified China, and assumed the mandate of heaven for the Song dynasty, which reigned from 960 to 1279. China, like India and the Islamic world, participated in Afro-Eurasia's powerful long-distance trade. Chinese merchants were as energetic as their Muslim and Indian counterparts. Yet China's commercial success did not or could not have occurred without the country's strong agrarian base, especially its vast wheat, millet, and rice fields, which fed a population that reached 120 million. Agriculture benefited from breakthroughs in metalworking that produced stronger iron plows, which the Song harnessed to sturdy water buffalo to extend the agricultural frontier. So something significant about iron there again. Manufacturing also flourished. In 1078, for example, total Song iron production reached between 75,000 and 150,000 tons, roughly the equivalent of European iron production in the early 18th century. Yeah, that's 11th century. You got iron production, the equivalency of the early 18th century in Europe. That's a big deal. The Chinese piston-driven bellows that provided forced air for furnaces were also of a size unsurpassed until the 19th century. Also in the early 10th century, Chinese alchemists mixed saltpeter with sulfur and charcoal to produce a product that would burn and that could be deployed on the battlefield. That would be gunpowder, my friends. Expanding commerce transformed the role of money and its wide circulation. By now, the Song government was annually minting nearly 2 million strings of currency, each containing 1,000 copper coins. In fact, as the economy grew, the supply of metal currency could not match the demand. One result was East Asia's thirst for gold from East Africa. At the same time, merchant guilds in northwestern Shanxi developed the first letters of exchange called flying cash. These letters linked northern traders with their colleagues in the south. It's like the first version of printed money. So before long, printed money had eclipsed coins. Even the government collected more than half its tax revenues in cash rather than grain and cloth. The government also issued more notes to pay its bills, a practice that ultimately contributed to the world's first case of runaway inflation. Song emperors ushered in a period of social and cultural vitality. They built on Tang institutions by expanding a central bureaucracy of scholar officials chosen through competitive civil service examinations. Zhao Quengyin, or Emperor Taizu, who ruled from 960 to 976 CE, himself administered the final test for all who had passed the highest level palace examination. In subsequent dynasties, the emperor was the nation's premier examiner, symbolically demanding oaths of allegiance from successful candidates. By 1100, these ranks of learned men had accumulated sufficient power to become China's new ruling elite. In military power, the Song dynasts were relatively weak. Despite their sophisticated weapons, they could not match their enemies on the steppe when the latter united against them. Steel tips improved the arrows the Song soldiers shot from their crossbows, and flame throwers and crouching tiger catapults sent incendiary bombs streaking into their enemies' ranks. But none of these breakthroughs was secret. Warrior neighbors on the steppe mastered the new arts of war more fully than did the Song dynasts themselves. China's strength as a manufacturing powerhouse made economic diplomacy an option, so the Song relied on gifts and generous trade agreements with the borderlands. For example, after losing North China to the Kedan Liao dynasty, the Song agreed to make annual payments of 1,000 ounces of silver and 20,000 bolts of silk. The treaty allowed them to live in relative peace for more than a century. Securing peace meant emptying the state coffers and then printing more paper money. The resulting inflation added economic instability to military weakness, making the Song an easy target when Jurchen invaders made their final assault. So, before I get to all that kind of stuff, it's important to note then that China relied on its economic diplomacy and its manufacturing strength rather than military might during the Song dynasty. Okay? Because it's mastered all these cool techniques, military things like gunpowder and incendiary bombs, but other folks are using that tech and they're using it better. Okay. Paradoxically, the increasing exchange between outsiders and insiders within China hardened the lines that divided them and gave residents of China's interior a highly developed sense of themselves as a distinctive people possessing a superior culture. Exchanges with outsiders nurtured a Chinese identity among those who considered themselves as Han. Driven south from their ancient homeland in the 11th century, they grew increasingly suspicious and resentful toward the outsiders living in their midst. They called these outsiders barbarians and treated them accordingly. Vital in crystallizing the sense of a distinct Chinese identity was print culture. Of all Afroeurasian societies in 1300, the Chinese were the most advanced in their use of printing and book publishing and circulation. Moreover, their books established classical Chinese as the common language of educated classes in East Asia. The Song government used its plentiful supply of paper to print books, especially medical texts, and to distribute calendars. The private publishing industry also expanded. Printing houses throughout the country produced Confucian classics, works on history, philosophical treatises, and literature, all of which figured in the civil examinations. Buddhist publications, too, were available everywhere. Feeling the pull of China's economic and political gravity, cultures around China consolidated their own internal political authority and defined their own identities in order to keep them from being swallowed up. At the same time, they increased their commercial transactions. So, in the next part, we will move to Japan, and then we'll go back to the Islamic world. So, again, because your book jumps, we're jumping too, but hopefully the notes are keeping you as grounded as possible. That is my goal. So, stay tuned for more in part 2.